All right, good morning, Chair Postman, board members, Garrett and Bollendroff, staff and guests. The virtual lobby is open, the physical lobby is open, and the recording has begun. Let's get going.
Thanks, Dustin. Good morning, everybody. We'll convene the Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Board Caucus meeting for July 5th, 2022. Our first item is a pilot program review on the level of service at University of Washington football games, I believe, mostly. And I'll turn it over to Becky Smith, our Licensing and Regulation Director. Good morning.
Well, good morning, Chair Postman and board members. Again, I'm Becky Smith, the Director of Licensing and Regulations. I'm coming here this morning to share with you a request by the University of Washington and Aramark Sports and Entertainment Services to renew their pilot program. If you remember previously, it had been approved for the 2021 football season last year. It was a short season, I will say, if you recall that the request that came in was the allowance of beer and wine in the stands for general seating. This would be prohibited, of course, in the student section. That the concession stands will sell no more than 2 drinks per transaction, and will ensure that proper identification checks occur to ensure that no sales come to minors. Again, it's the same pilot that they had requested for the 2021 football season. That as with all of our pilots at SEFs, that we do require that we meet with them, representatives from licensing, enforcement, Aramark, and the University of Washington. We meet every 3 months to see how the pilot has gone. Seeing that this was a short season for football, that we truly didn't get a full look at what this could look like, but we did have concerns. And with that, we met with the Aramark and the university. We went back and requested more information in order for us to look at renewing of this pilot. That we asked for some data that they provide us that required some security measures. We were also requested that that we receive a letter from not just the University of Washington's own police department, but of course the surrounding areas. So the city of Seattle, we requested that they provide information regarding how they thought that the pilot went. That I will tell you that that we did get some positive feedback from all parties regarding the pilot. That the pilot this last season did not allow for patrons to enter and exit the stadium. Once they exited, they were gone. They couldn't re-enter. So that had a positive outcome. That certainly that the university and the Seattle Police Department thought so, and we would agree with that. That we did also have some recommendations about adding some security. That the University of Washington, again, they were very, very upfront about wanting to make changes in their pilot. They want to make sure that they are also looking at public safety when it comes to the pilot program and the service of beer and wine in their general seating. So at this point, that one of the recommendations from licensing is recommending approval of this pilot for another year. That for the level of service that's included in their proposal. That again, they've made significant changes in their security measures that we feel will drastically assist in ensuring public safety. Are there questions?
I have a couple of questions, Becky. And comments. So I'm a proud member of the Tyee Club of the University of Washington, and I attend almost every Husky sporting event, including football. I want to say that I have seen firsthand Aramark and how professional they are and how they have handled both this pilot project and the serving of alcohol in other sporting events. They are very good at what they do. I appreciate the thoughtfulness that's gone behind the planning of this. I think I have seen firsthand the impact of people drinking alcohol and leaving during halftime and coming back and all that kind of stuff. And so I think the decision to limit people and not allowing them to come in and out of the stadium has actually decreased the number of people who I've seen drink excessive amounts of alcohol and then enter and then leave at halftime and come back. So I think that was a really smart decision. I had a question specifically about, I know for baseball, for example, they stop serving at the 7th inning. So we do the 7th inning stretch and no more alcohol. Is there a cutoff time in which for football, this is the, and I apologize if I missed this in any of the documents, but do they stop serving alcohol at a certain point in the football games? And if so, what time is that?
So they do, and that's not something that's in the pilot. That's something for all of our SEFs that they stop serving. I believe it's at the 3rd quarter. Is that right? Football 3rd quarter that they stop serving. And it's different for baseball, right? Because of course it's not quarters in baseball, it's innings, but they do stop serving alcohol at that time.
Great. Okay, thank you.
So Becky, there are no changes to the existing palette. It's the same as it was last season.
The request for a level of service is the same, Ollie, yes. That they did
Okay.
make some significant changes though. There's new signage that will be added to the perimeter of the building. And so prior to all the entrance points indicating no alcohol consumption allowed in the entry of a line. So that was a concern that we saw last season, is people still drinking in line. So they're going to have signage there. They're also adding 38 alcohol enforcement staff that are going to be deployed in Husky Stadium itself. So the changes that they've made are not changes to the number of that to their request, but really changes to have more monitoring. They've
Right.
also had, yeah.
And that's what I was meaning to their request. There were no
Yes.
changes. Okay.
There was no changes to their request, correct.
I also appreciate the fact that there's recognition that we had a shorter football season last year. And it was also just odd. We had a whole year off and then we were back and there was question, it was just a different season. So extending it for another year, when presumably we'll be in a more, realistic or typical football season is, I think, especially helpful to give us an opportunity to review it during a more regular season.
Yeah, I would agree. It's hard to look at their data because, it's skewed with that shortened season and with us coming out of COVID and folks attending those events as well in public. So there's those different, that they did provide us with some data. It's a bit skewed because we don't know what a whole season looks like. So I agree. I think this will be very helpful.
Yeah, just real quick, I agree with my colleagues. I think you and Nicola Reed took a really smart approach on this and, tuned it up, frankly. And I'm glad that there are those additions to the kind of security and overseeing of what's going on. I know we'll be there looking too. And I think this will give everybody a fair chance to see if this is really a good approach. So thanks to you and thanks to Nicola for that work.
I have one more final comment that I forgot to mention. So I do go to every game. And so one thing that happened last season, there was a situation in which on the big screen, they showed a former player actually drinking an alcoholic beverage and he drank the entire beer on screen. And I just want to go on record as saying that I feel like that was poor form. And I would ask that the university really seriously consider what they show on the big screen when it comes to alcohol. So I just felt like I needed to go on the record saying that.
What a great point. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for the presentation, Director Smith, and we'll see you tomorrow for consideration.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Becky.
We'll turn now to board meeting prep and a general rules update, and I will turn it over to Dr. Hoffman, our policy and rules manager. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Postman, board members Garrett and Bollendroff.
Morning.
I'll try to make this rulemaking and associated activity update brief, but we've been doing a lot in rules, so it may be less brief than I had hoped. But I'll go ahead and start with cannabis. Jeff will be bringing the CR 103 concerning second substitute House Bill 1210 to you tomorrow. So that's changing the word marijuana to cannabis throughout all of our rules, and Jeff can prep you on that in a few moments. With respect to our THC cannabinoid definition work, that work is ongoing. We had anticipated listen and learn session on July 14th. We're going to push that out to the end of the month, though. We need to do a little more work internally to kind of whittle down what we're thinking about putting into rule in terms of definition around THC cannabinoids. On social equity work, we continue to reach out to other states in preparation of preparing a new rule proposal. We have reached out to a constitutional scholars to help us assess the risks related to our rule and our approach, and intend on bringing more to you on that in the coming weeks. With respect to future rulemaking, we do continue to review packaging and labeling rules. We are taking a deep dive into our advertising rules to see what we need to adjust, since those haven't been adjusted in quite some time. So that work is ongoing internally. We also have a rule petition that will be responding to and bringing to you on or about July 20th. And that has to do with curbside service. So that's upcoming. And then there's other rule petitions that I anticipate that we'll be receiving. One of them is around minors on licensed farms. That was a temporary allowance we provided. There's been some outreach to us about whether or not we've received a petition yet, and I anticipate that we will. We may also see a petition on canopy. We know there's been some activity around canopy as well. So just kind of keeping those in the back of our minds at this point. Moving into alcohol, well, let me stop. Any questions on the cannabis side before I move into alcohol?
I have one quick one on the canopy issue you just mentioned. I know you've
Sure.
told me this before, but I think it's possible we would get a petition on that. Maybe likely we could find out. Are there advantages or disadvantages? Does it change whether we wait for a petition or whether we start that process ourselves?
It really doesn't matter from my perspective. I mean, if there are any impacts to the way a rule is applied in terms of compliance costs, it's going to be the same whether the agency initiates it or a constituent initiates or provides a rule petition to us. The only time that might change is if the legislature mandates that we change a rule, and then there isn't any, we're exempted at that point. But yeah,
But for timelines or hearings or anything like that, we follow the same process. So, okay. All right. Well, again, I bet we do get one, but it's worth, I appreciate knowing that.
Contemplating
Thanks.
internally. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. All right. So moving on to alcohol. Axe throwing rules go into effect this July 9th. So it's coming up. Just wanted to, I know we've all been excited to know about that. Implementation of Senate Bill 5940, that has to do with packaging services. Audrey will be bringing the CR 102, the rule proposal, to you on July 20th, so we're ready to go there. That would set the public hearing for August 31st, and then the earliest we could adopt rules there would be September 14th. So that project is coming along nicely. And then on to general rulemaking. Audrey will speak to the CR 103 for electronic submission of documents. She'll be presenting that to you tomorrow. We will be engaging in expedited rulemaking to address some obsolete addresses that currently exist in our rules that make it, just be nice to have those addresses updated. There's a lot of references to our prior address on Pacific Avenue in our rules right now. So we're going to make some adjustments there, and also adjustments to references to email addresses. Those are not accurate in our rules at this point as well, so we want to update those as well. And then finally, we have 4 board interim policies that I'm going to be addressing in the next couple months. These have to do with wet flower transfer, excuse me, the application of 314-55-109 that has to do with the reporting of outsourced CBD into our old system that was Leaf. Now that that is no longer, we're not using Leaf anymore. It's not, I don't think that we need that board interim policy anymore, and working with enforcement on how we might rescind that policy. We are moving the board interim policy related to alcohol pops to a policy statement. We'll be bringing that to you on the 20th, along with the wet flower transfer policy statement. And then we still have distilleries and alternating proprietorships outstanding on the alcohol side. So we'll be determining what to do with that board interim policy as well. And that concludes my updates on rules for now. Any questions before I hand it over to Audrey and Jeff?
A quick one. What is outsourced CDB? Is that what you called it?
CBD, sorry.
CBD. But what is
Yeah.
Outsourced?
That means that it comes from a source outside of the I-502 system.
Ah, okay.
So that's codified in RCW 695326. So that allows a processor to bring CBD from a source outside of I-502 into I-502 for the sole purpose of enhancing cannabinoid concentration in an I-502 product. So
Right.
very
So that's the
limited
additive
That's right.
piece, right?
Single, yeah,
Okay.
very narrow pathway that CBD can come in.
And that was done by
Yeah.
board interim policy initially.
Well, no, it was in statute and then it codified and then we put it into rule, but the rule was put in place before we had Leaf. And Leaf
Oh,
didn't
right,
have
okay.
any way, right, Leaf didn't have any way to track a product that came from outside of our 502 system because it didn't have any traceability numbers.
Right. And now you think we just don't need, with CCRS, there's nothing we should.
Right, under CCRS, enforcement assures me that it is no longer needed.
Okay, great. Look forward to that. Thank you.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
So kicking it over to Audrey.
Great.
Thanks, Kathy. Sorry, I'm getting my camera going. There we go. If you all can see me now. Good morning, Chair Postman, board members Garrett and Bollendroff. Tomorrow I'll be requesting that the board adopt final rules related to electronic transmission of documents for service and filing. So I'll just provide some brief background on these rules. They're needed to streamline and modernize business and adjudicative processes to establish a consistent agency-wide approach to electronic service and filing. And to develop the CR 102 and proposed rules, we shared the conceptual draft publicly through GovDelivery. 3 comments we've received were included as in attachment B to the CR 102 memo and were taken into consideration as we developed the rule proposal. Ultimately, no changes were made from the conceptual draft rules to the proposed rules, and the board approved filing the CR 102 on May 11th, 2022. During the public comment period from May 11th to June 22nd, no written comments were received and no oral testimony was provided at the public hearing. So given that no comments were received, there were no changes made from the proposed rules to the final rules before you. And in summary, the final rule establishes electronic transmission as an additional means for service and filing of documents. Electronic transmission is defined as including, but not limited to, email, web portal, fax, or other similar methods. And the proposed rule also outlines procedures for service and filing of documents by electronic transmission and describes how the date and time of delivery or receipt will be determined. In terms of timeline, if the board adopts the final rules tomorrow, I will file the CR 103 with the code revisor and the rules will go into effect 31 days later, which would be August 6th. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Not from me.
I have no questions.
See none.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey.
Hey, good morning, Chair Postman and members Garrett and Bollendroff.
Good morning.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi. At tomorrow's board meeting, I plan to present the CR 103 rulemaking package for your consideration to adopt the rule changes required by second substitute House Bill 1210. And for background, this bill, as you know, replaces the term marijuana with the term cannabis in the revised Code of Washington. And also in this bill, it directs the LCB to replace the term marijuana with the term cannabis throughout Chapter 31455 WAC, which are the rules of the LCB. During the 45-day comment period that began on April 27th, 2022, we only received 2 comments on this change, and those both came early after the filing of the CR 105. So there are no changes to the rule language from the CR 105 to the CR 103 permanent package. If approved tomorrow, the rules will be going into effect on August 6th, 2022. So do you have any questions about this rulemaking?
No,
None.
I think we're good on this one.
Okay. And also, as Kathy mentioned, at the upcoming July 20th board meeting, I will present a rule petition received on May 24th that requests a new rule or a rule amendment to allow cannabis licensees to conduct curbside and walk-up sales at their retail cannabis locations. So I will plan to present that on July 20th. And that's all that I have to update on today.
Okay, Jeff, on that last one, the petition, is that, and I don't know if they specified, but basically what we had in an allowance that expired on the 1st, right? Would this just put that same thing in rule?
Sure. Yeah, I think it would be very much the same sort of allowance. And in the considering this petition, we're looking at the previous limitations that were placed on the walk-up and curbside service, such as maintaining the video security and not selling to people when they're in there, not conducting the sales when people don't have ID. So
right.
we're following those same looking at those same guidelines. So I'm looking forward to presenting that on the 20th.
Yeah, good. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And that is, yes, more?
That's it from us.
That's it, okay.
Just
All right,
wanted to
great.
close the loop.
We'll see you and the team tomorrow. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item is agency updates. We have both our director and deputy director with us. We will go ahead and start with our director, Rick Garza. Rick?
Good morning, Chair Postman, board members, Garrett, Bollendroff. Good to be with you this morning. Don't have a lot, but I did want to share some work that we've been doing in the last week. And you should have received, I'm saying our board members and staff, last Thursday, a communication that both went out to our enforcement cannabis team and the entire agency with respect to plant canopy. And then also a few hours later, a communication that went to our cannabis licensees and stakeholders. And obviously this impacts our growers more than anyone, but couple of weeks ago, and for transparency, even back on May 10th, I received correspondence from one specific licensee raising concerns about how we were measuring canopy. So I'll just give a little historical perspective, and really a lot of it's in the communication, but I wanted to just share that. Back in November of last year, enforcement put together a protocol, because what they had seen is in the past, we may have been inconsistent in how we applied the canopy. In other words, what the enforcement division clarified for consistency's sake is that pathways and walkways would be included as part of the canopy. And the way they did it is they take the exterior boundaries of the canopy that they have, whether they're a tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3, and they would measure it. And that would include what could be large walkways or pathways as part of that canopy. And in the eyes of enforcement and the agency, that is how we've been measuring canopy for quite some time. But what we learned is that may have been applied inconsistently in parts of the state. And so a couple of weeks ago, several growers came to us and shared concerns again that, oh my gosh, I was told that I could do this or I could do that, which included the measurement of the pathways or walkways or not. And so we began a discussion internally about this. And after some discussion with enforcement and the agency, we chose, as you can see in the communication, to pause for a moment, to have more of a discussion inside the agency and outside the agency with our stakeholders about this protocol. And so you'll see in bold with respect to the canopy measurement, and I'll just read it, related to canopy for the duration of 2022, any seizure or directive to have licensee cut down over canopy plants must be based on a canopy measurement that would be over canopy if the pathways or areas between rows were not included in the calculation. And let me just share for a moment there. We've had a lot of concerns raised in the last year and a half, that there are people growing well beyond the canopy that they're approved for. And so we have taken action in the last 18 months to stop that and to bring them back to what is in compliance. And so I bring that up only in that this new protocol only applies to pathways, roadways, I don't know what we would call them, walkways in between the plants. And if people are well over their tier measurement, whatever it is, we will continue to enforce that. This really is focused on the issue that several growers and many brought to us a week and two ago. So I just wanted to clarify that, and we will hold off on any kind of enforcement action till we've had an opportunity to work with the board and work again with the agency and stakeholders to what that should really look like. We have some growers, for example, who have chosen to have large, almost large enough pathways that you could drive a small tractor through it. And right now, the way the protocol was written, that would be considered part of the canopy. So that seems to not allow, I just say personally, doesn't seem to allow our growers to use the, the type of grow that they want to use without being harmed, with their canopy being reduced then, because you're taking these large pathways or walkways and considering that part of the grow. I think it's a little more complicated than what I'm sharing with you, which is why I think we need to take some time to look at this. But I just want to thank the Enforcement Division. Chair Postman was involved last week in helping us with the communication, and others in the agency, and Brian, our communications director. So I think we're hopefully all on the same page of needing to make sure we take a look at this. And as I think Chair Postman and Kathy stated earlier, we may see a petition come to us to look at this, or the board may take the action itself. We'll see in the next few days what happens, but I think, as you said, Chair Postman, that's really a decision the board can make as to whether they would wait for a petition or take action themselves to look at this. But it seems pretty clear we need to take a look at how we do this today. So I just wanted to take a few moments to share that with you and answer any questions you might have.
Yeah, Rick, I just want to add that the pause really is so we can be sure that we have a uniform policy protocol statewide, and that the enforcement is consistent, and that we're informing and educating people about it thoroughly. And as you correctly said, this isn't to signal to anybody that you can just grow as much as you want wherever you want. It is essential, I believe, to our system that we operate since 502, to have this ability to regulate the total amount of production. And it is more complicated. When you first start looking at it, and you wonder what is a pathway and what is a roadway and how would you calculate or subtract that. And what we do is it's canopy. So what we're measuring is all these plants up here, really. And that's what we've done since the start. And I think it's just, we're 10 years almost from passage. Let's just take a look and make sure that's the best tool we have for regulating this, but we need to regulate it, and we will enforce it uniformly and consistently. So yeah, the pause is a pause, and one way or the other, we will move forward with something and make sure that everybody understands what those rules are going forward. I also don't think, we're at total canopy limits statewide, and so it's time to check in on all of that too. So that's all I had, Rick. Thanks.
Questions of the other board members?
I have none. Thank you for the update.
You bet. I also wanted to bring Tony Hood in, our Deputy Director, to provide any new updates we have with respect to SMP. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Good morning, Chair Postman and members Wallendroff and Garrett. Thank you for having me today. Since the last time I presented to you, we have scheduled 3 vendor presentations. I believe last time I explained that we had received 3 bids for the SMP integrator contractor, and we are having the 3 vendors all come and give presentations next week. They will be from 9 to 3. They might not go exactly till 3, but we have invited all of our steering committee members to come if they would like to listen to part of it, and we'll be getting more specific agendas out to everyone so that they can listen to perhaps certain parts that may interest them. So that is great news, and we look forward to being able to ask them questions. Their bids did lead to a lot of questions for us regarding potential additional costs, regarding what needs to be customized and what doesn't. And there are also references to other things that could lead to additional costs. So we really need to ferret that out, whether there's additional software licenses needed or not, what's included and what's not. So we're happy to have them start next week. I believe I told you that we hired a PM, a project manager. She will be here in person on next week as well, on the 11th. So Cherry Haywood is her name. And I'm excited to have her here in person. We also hired an AA4 who will be here in person on Monday, the 11th. And finally, we have OCM consultants from the firm. It's called Librum, and we have 1 local and 1 who lives out of state. So they will both be here in person next week. And they just presented us with a very thorough OCM plan. And it's 17 pages and outlines a lot of good training. And it's very thorough in the steps we need to take to prepare for all of this transition, including the training on the different systems. So we were really happy to see that. That draft plan has been filed with the OCIO. It just needs a few minor tweaks. It's actually, some of it's just change in vocabulary so that we're consistent on our use of terms. And then we will finalize that, but the OCIO has seen that. And I also mentioned before, the technology budget was approved. We're waiting for the GATE certification that has to come from the OCIO. We believe we've given them everything they need. And so we are actually going to follow up with them today to find out where the status of that official certification is. Erin Hansen is our budget manager who's on SMP, who works with us closely. So that's all I have regarding that.
All right. Don't see any questions. Thank you for that update, Tony, and thanks for everything you've been doing with SMP. I just feel like we're doing better, being informed all the time, and we're making progress. And so maybe second time's a charm.
Great, thank you.
I echo that, Tony. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Rick, you're back.
Chair Postman, I didn't have anything else. I see that Gretchen Frost is in this meeting. I just wanted to share for 1 second. Gretchen has been my assistant for over 10 years. She is now moving over, as you all know, to take a part-time position with the board. And Gloria Hong started with us last Friday, and Gloria's with us today. And I just want to take a moment. Gretchen, I would be even less competent than I am today if it not for you. So I wanted to just be really clear that I appreciate the hard work and commitment to this agency that you've shared over the years that you've been with us. I know it's an easy transition to the board and that they're, of course, I know they're happy and fortunate to have you, and that you stay with the agency with your history and your knowledge. And the fact that you on your own decided you're going to, help transition Gloria the next couple of weeks. And so I just want to take a moment with the board members and our staff and the public to say thank you for the time that you were with me and keeping me straight and organized, as difficult as I know that can be. So to the board members, thanks for giving me this opportunity. And that's it for today. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rick. Yes. And I will add my thanks to Gretchen both for what she's done, keeping you organized, Rick, all these years, and now joining the lower maintenance board staff. So we look forward to having our team full again, and couldn't think of a better addition than Gretchen, given that how well she knows the agency and how well she does her job every day. So we're very excited.
Yes, we
Great, thank you. Okay, we are to our last item, which is board member and executive assistant reports. We'll check with Dustin first. Dustin, anything from your desk?
Nothing additional from me, but I'll echo our appreciation of Gretchen and really look forward to working a little more closely with her for the next couple of years anyway.
Great, thank you. Members, anything from you today? Any update? I just got one quick one I wanted to mention. There were a round of stories, mostly in the cannabis press, now probably 2 weeks ago, about how safe banking had died in Washington, D.C., and which was bad news. But I called the governor's D.C. office and did a little poking around. And I just want to share with us both for staff and anybody who's listening. It's not as, I'll say first, I still remain a skeptic, but that it'll get passage right away, but it's not as dire as it appears. Some of this is just a procedural thing that Congress is kind of at log jams over the Competes Act. That was the big umbrella thing that safe banking got tucked into because the House put it in. And they went to conference committee, which was their negotiation. And the thought was, well, as the negotiate Competes, the House can argue for inclusion of safe banking. And what happened was Competes is in trouble. They weren't able to reach agreement there. So essentially, the both sides, retreated. So those House things came back. They're not in there. They're trying to get that done. But the good news is there's actually been some indication from the Senate, which has been the one that the body we're more concerned about here, that they're interested in trying to get something done. And there was a really, I thought, positive story in Politico last week of June that says, I'll just read it a little bit, but that a bunch of lawmakers, staffers, advocates, and lobbyists agreed that in recent weeks the tone has changed. Senators previously opposed to anything but a major marijuana decriminalization bill are slowly warming to another option. And what that option would be, it's a couple of different things put together, including safe banking, that could happen. And again, that doesn't make it easy or anything, but Representative Blumenauer, who's been in the middle of all this, was quoted as saying there's a greater sense of urgency. I think there's a broader base of support. So I would just say I think that we're really status quo there. It's not really any better or worse today than it was a month ago. But it is, I would say, at least from talking to people back there, it is not as dire as one may have been led to believe by reading the stories about. I mean, it is frustrating continuing how many times the House has passed this and the Senate hasn't. So I totally get that. But I'll try to be as optimistic as my character allows me to be, and think that maybe this still will happen, because we certainly think it's essential to a safe operations of our system. So That's my news update for today. And seeing nothing else, we will adjourn the board caucus for July 5th, 2022. We'll be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. for a board meeting. Thank you. See you all then.
Thank you.
See you too.